Hello everyone and welcome to the Society of Editors Conference 2020. My name is Sarah Brown and I head up news partnerships for Facebook in Northern Europe. Sadly, I won't be seeing you in person this year because of the extraordinary circumstances over the past few months, but it's been incredibly inspiring to see the amazing work that publishers all across the UK have been doing to ensure that despite everything going on, you've been connecting people to the stories that matter most to them. This has been incredibly inspiring to see, and Facebook hopes to continue working with all of you in the future to make sure those stories are being connected with the people who need them most. Thank you so much again for all your fantastic work and looking forward to all the sessions today.
Hello everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nigel Railton and I'm the CEO of Camelot UK and have been since 2017. In the current challenging circumstances, I'm so glad that Society of Editors annual conference is able to go ahead, albeit I suppose in a very different and innovative way. We're now in our 26th year of operating the National Lottery, and Camelot has supported Society of Editors for 19 of those 26 years. Thanks to your and your journalist invaluable support over that time, a number of things have been able to happen. National Lottery winners have been able to share their good news. Missing ticket holders have been united with their winnings, and a huge range of good cause and charity projects have been able to highlight the difference that they make thanks to vital National Lottery funding. And the 30 million that's raised each and every week by National Lottery players has never been more crucial than it is right now. Earlier in the year, the National Lottery distributors announced that 600 million in funding was going towards COVID relief. Now that's the biggest financial contribution outside of central government. And we're continuing to work with them and others to do as much as we possibly can on this long road to recovery. We remain fully committed to keeping the National Lottery up and running, and in particular supporting our 44,000 retail partners who have been vital to the National Lottery's success since 1994. And I must say they've done an amazing job, I'm sure you'll agree, through this lockdown period and indeed through the whole COVID experience. We of course have a shared interest in that regard as well, as many of our retailers and newsagents so sell both our products and yours. I know that things are uncertain right now, and for many of us, and I know it's something that's been said over and over, but we at Camelot are fully committed to supporting the Society of Editors and the UK media more generally, and we really are all in this together. If there's anything I or my team can do, or you've had any feedback on how we could work better together, then please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to say a few words, and I'll let you get on with your session now. Thank you for all that you're doing, and I hope that you and your family stay safe and well, and hopefully in the not too distant future I'll be able to see you again in person. Until that time, thank you very much.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this, the final section of the Society of Editors Virtual Conference 2020. And I'm delighted to have here as my guest today, Christian Broughton, former editor of The Independent and now managing director of The Independent, which we will come to soon, but congratulations on your new role, Christian.
Thank you very much.
Very well deserved. I just wanted to remind everyone who's joining us and say thank you for joining us that, of course, at this time of the year, usually the members of the Society of Editors would gather for our annual late autumn conference where we would discuss the main topics and issues challenging the industry at this time. Of course, that's impossible to do in person this year. And so what we've organised is our virtual conference 2020. And instead of trying to force people to watch a whole day or so of debates on the screen, we deconstructed it and held it across 4 weeks. Will we do it again for 4 weeks? Well, if my nerves hold out for the end of this one, I'll let you know. So thank you once again for joining us, and thank you to all of those of you who have joined us over the other sessions throughout the whole of the conference. Just a reminder that you can see this all again on our website, societyofeditors.org, where all of these recordings are being stored, and also follow us on #EditorsUK. So on with our final session, and once again, welcome Christian, and thank you for spending the time to join with us this afternoon. Congratulations again on your new appointment. Very interested, I'm sure I am, and most of the industry would be very interested in knowing now your reflections looking back on that momentous decision to take the Independent to totally online. How it's proved a major success. How did you achieve it? Was there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, the success of that move required a lot of planning. I moved over to the website from the backbench of the newspaper in 2012, and actually some of the smart thinking had already taken place by then. When the Lebedevs bought the Indy, it's just over 10 years ago now, they created two companies, Independent Print Limited and Independent Digital News and Media. It's always important for the digital and the print side of things to work together, of course, while you've got them. But the separation there actually achieved a couple of really important things. One was that over on the digital side of things, we could get on and make some fast decisions and make some fast changes. In the ideal world, of course, you'd have this kind of perfect scenario where everyone moves together. But in reality, the bigger something is, sometimes you lose some of that agility and the faster pace. So the separation was key in allowing us to make decisions, evolve our editorial strengths. And actually looking back, we created a couple of sub-brands for the Independent that have really stood us in good stead. One was Voices, which was our rebranding of the comment section. And we really wanted to reflect that it was a much more kind of open and broad mix of personal reflections than you would find in your classic kind of buttoned up austere comment section of some newspapers. It's been a terrific point of difference for us. It's still an absolute strength for us. Another example of that I'd draw attention to this week of all weeks, we've just come through Black Friday, and our e-commerce offering, Indy Best, was formed in those early years as well. Actually came out of a print feature called the 10 Best that used to be in the Features Daily Pullout that I used to edit for a while. I mean, that's grown into a multi-million-pound revenue part of our business now. So having the ability to move and make decisions as a very kind of nimble digital team back then was really important. I think the second benefit of that separation is something that's best seen in kind of business terms. We had to stand on our own 2 feet. It forced us to have a kind of separation on the books, that we could see the revenues, we could see the costs, we could see that performance. I think everyone at the Indy across the board could really see that because we had the smallest print circulation back then, we were probably going to have to make that leap first. So when we switched to the digi-publishing side of things in 2016, we knew that so much of the content that was driving the business and the innovation that was driving the business was already coming from a digital team that had established cost lines, it had established revenue lines. So it may have looked like a really risky moment when we made a leap of faith. It probably wasn't as risky actually as it looked from the outside back then. We kind of knew how things were working. The final thing that we did that was really good, we brought, I think it was about 50 of the people from the print focus team over to digital at that point. And when I look back at some of those names, you've got Ben Chu on economics, you've got, say, Patrick Coburn on foreign affairs, Simon Calder on travel, Andy Grice on politics. They've been crucial, and actually we've welcomed back some names as well. Katie Davis, who is our US editor now, was actually one of our home news editors back in the day on print. So it's been really nice to bring over that talent as well.
And just you mentioning there about well, it certainly seemed brave from the outside looking in to actually say, no, we're going to be totally digital. It's very interesting you were saying about the preparations that went on beforehand. Mm-hmm. Did you find, or did you have any concerns about the fact that without having a physical copy out there, even if people weren't picking it up, they would see all that advertising, shall we say, by seeing it on the newsstands, that taking that away, that was a risk? And do you think that didn't matter?
So taking away the advertising, you mean?
No, taking away the physical presence of having a paper that's seen out there as an advertising tool for the digital.
Oh, I see what you mean. I think actually I think you have to focus on, you have to stay optimistic when you're having that kind of big change. You can't pine for things of the past constantly. I think it was very good. We stayed very focused on the spirit of the brand. We stayed we were very mindful of the heritage of the brand. But I think you've really got to, you've got to stay focused on the future. With digital publishing, you get all kinds of opportunities to be very, very in touch with your readership in ways that print just doesn't give you. So in terms of kind of manifesting yourself and being real in people's lives, I think digital gives you endless opportunities to do that. We've also got, we carried across the subscribers into a subscription product that's growing today that actually gives that kind of newspaper-like experience if that's what people want. But I think that if you're going to be setting out a really dynamic future, and if you're going to be changing things, it's going to be really difficult if you kind of carry this heavy burden of the past too much and worry about those things too much. You can't build a dynamic future if you're obsessed with curating a museum of the past. You have to ask what's important about the brand and what you stand for, and you have to hold on to that. But you also have to allow room for innovation, for new ideas, for new ways to present what the Independent should be. One of the questions I asked everyone who came across in that cohort of 50 was, what would they do if they were starting from scratch? And if it's this thing called the Independent, it was going to be born into a web era. What should it be? What should it do? What kind of content should it do? What kind of campaign should it lead? How would it land those messages? And I think that energy, that positivity is so much more valuable than the kind of constant kind of rearview mirror and looking backwards. But I mean, I think actually one of the things that has surprised me about it, and particularly looking back at the year we've just had, is no one else has really done it yet. It's no other title of our size has shut print and got it right. I mean, we were losing, it's no secret to say we were losing millions year after year in print. And immediately when we went fully digital, we hit profit. We've been in double-digit revenue growth every year since then. We became the most read quality news brand in Britain. We have more readers in the US than in the UK. We have a NewsGuard rating of 100, which we got recently, which I was very proud of. We're still winning awards, and we feel like there's so much more to come. So now we feel like we're really set for this expansion, and that's partly why I've decided, to be honest, I wouldn't have, I don't think I'd be quite so excited about the new role if I didn't really believe that the business was really well placed there. John Payton is our new chairman who came, well, I say new, he came on board just over a year ago. When I first met him to talk about his joining, in that conversation, he pointed out that he described the Independent as the unicorn. He said, you guys are the unicorn, you've done this. And I think he's right. We have done it. It has been a tremendous success. And so as a lot of the established ways for print of making money and distributing itself have been challenged over the past year, I'm a little surprised that more people haven't looked at our success and been encouraged to do something similar.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I mean, would you be surprised if it continues that no one follows you into this way?
I'm always surprised. I'm surprised year by year. I've been surprised year by year since 2016 when it happened. When we, for instance, the Independent comes with a sense of innovation. It's always had to do that. It was an innovative brand when it was first created in '86. It was innovative when it changed its shape from broadsheet down to compact. It was innovative when it created the eye. When we changed the format of the paper, for instance, down to a kind of compact model, it was a while ago now, but it feels like either weeks or tops months until the Times is also changing its format, and the Guardian changed its format. I'm surprised year by year that people aren't doing a similar thing. There's always kind of speculation about who might go next. And
it may not be a national paper. Of course, it could be one of the largest city papers.
Yeah, it may not. I think actually one of the when I was explaining the separation of the company into digital and print back 10 years ago, I think one of the impacts of that actually is that whereas a lot of print titles are now still in that mindset where they're trying to grow the digital revenues to offset the decline in print revenues and kind of balance the two, it really did shift us into thinking, rather than trying to answer that question, can we grow digital to make up for the fall in print? It actually put our minds more on when can digital stand on its own 2 feet and grow really successfully. And they sound like they're similar challenges and similar questions, but they're actually not. They're actually quite different.
Well, I can well remember back in the day, not that long ago, when I was editing regional dailies, and some marketing chap came up with the calculation that if we gave all of our readers a free tablet and stopped printing the paper, at what point we would reach profits. And it was frightening when you looked at the figure. It wasn't taken up. Perhaps in the future. So, tell us a little bit more about your new role and how you see driving the Indy forward.
Yeah, we feel that this is going to be a great time for us to really ramp up some growth in some very key projects. As I say, reason is we've had this kind of very strong, very solid, double-digit revenue growth for some years now. We've just finished a year where we've had, obviously, it was a difficult year for all media in some ways, but we finished that with record revenues and record profits. We came through it really well. We are really agile. We are really good at sticking to growth and making those plans work. So a lot of my role now is about leading specific ventures, specific initiatives to really dynamically grow some interesting parts of the business. Like, for instance, one of these is independent TV. It's a big evolution of our multimedia offering. We want to bring daily programming online. Our reach is already considerable. On a kind of average month, we serve around 50 million video views just through our own website. Then there's YouTube, Facebook, all kinds of platforms on top of that. There's a whole world of distribution and monetization off platform as well as on platform. But we're going to see some considerable investment into content there, and a great step forward for us to become a TV brand. I think one thing that makes us different from other initiatives that you've seen in that space is that I think a lot of companies have kind of gone quite cost first when it's come to video online, and they've really maybe they've produced some nice stuff, but they've certainly invested in that side of things, racked up quite a big bill. You then look at the distribution of it and the monetization of it, and there's that point in kind of 6 months, a year down the track when those things are a little bit behind, and you start looking at the projects and asking questions about quite how wise that was. We've actually already really worked on the monetization and the distribution. So as I say, we're already serving a really big amount of video to our audiences, and we are already making a considerable amount of revenue from that. So we feel like we are ahead in those two very difficult areas. So I think it's going to be really good fun, actually, and it's certainly a challenge that I'm looking forward to. It feels a little bit more like an editorial challenge, so it's kind of nice and familiar for me from my past. So that's one of the projects. We have a number of international projects running. We launched, you probably saw, we launched a Spanish language website recently, independenteespañol.com, which is aimed predominantly at US and Latin American Spanish speakers. That's going really well. Had a fantastic election coverage, and really came to life on the day that, you get a story like Maradona happen, actually, as we did last week. And my goodness, it's really exciting to see how the audiences interact with that. There's always been a buzz as a journalist to see that really close interplay between the content we produce and the audience that we generate. So that was a particularly rewarding week. An Asia edition is also on its way. We have been hiring recently in Delhi. Adam Withnell, our Asia editor, who's been in Delhi for 3 years now, has been hiring. He's got a team of about 6 at the moment there. And he's starting to ramp up our coverage of that region. That's going really, really well. We've got big plans for that. The US team, during the middle of it's not very easy to open a new bureau in the middle of a pandemic, but we seem to have done it a few times in the past year. But we have a West Coast team now, based largely in LA. They have been hired. They haven't got the office space yet because of the obvious lockdown. But that came in time for the US election, was an absolutely crucial addition for our election coverage. We have expansion of our Indy Best team. Just mentioned Indy Best already, our fantastic e-commerce division, which is really based and draws on those same fantastic brand values of trust and authority and independence. You know, these are not just reviews written by whoever pays us most. These are genuinely independent consumer reviews, which I think is just absolutely filling a gap that we all feel more and more during lockdown as we buy more and more things online and just want that authoritative, but not too kind of jargon heavy steer on what we should be buying. So that's been ramped up heavily too. Finally, let's mention Indy 100. Indy 100, which was first born as I100 some years ago, which is our news site for Gen Z and millennial audiences. That's also something that we've earmarked for rapid growth this year. We have added a new aspect to that site. We've created a blog platform, which is called conversations.indy100.com. And that is already picking up some really nice traction. The hope there really is that as a means of countering how, social media seems to be so often about these kind of tiny snippets of messages that get exchanged, and the more you kind of chop it down, sometimes the more kind of slightly aggressive and unnecessary those and kind of shallow those interactions become. So by inviting people on to write a piece for us, to write a blog post for us, we hope that we'll get some really kind of more meaningful ideas unpacked. And I have to say, some of the initial pieces that have been offered on that platform are really rewarding.
So taking you back on a couple of the points that you mentioned over there, I mean, you mentioned obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic still.
Yep.
Some light at the end of the tunnel, depending on who you're listening to. How's it been for you on the independent? Have you, and it's, I don't want to appear crass in saying this, but have you had a good pandemic so far?
Yeah, it is awkward that that journalists always have to have a really good moment at the time when the world is suffering. They seem to be always linked, but it is a part and parcel of our industry, I suppose. Yeah, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of the independent team during the pandemic. I would highlight several factors there. I mean, one is, it helps to have the award-winning Sean Linton as your health correspondent. That was he's had a fantastic year in everything that he's done. I mean, he was on to an incredible start for generating scoops about all kinds of stories to do with the NHS, and continues to, whether they're relevant to COVID or whether they're on other subjects entirely. He's also inspiring and having a real tangible impact on the team. I think probably I should give a shout out to Sam Lovett as well. It's kind of always unfair when you name a couple of reporters because you immediately think of another dozen as soon as you get off the...
Journalists don't have egos, you're fine.
Yeah, right. But those two particularly have done really well. Our data graphics have been fantastic. Very, very proud of a lot of the work that's been put in there. I'd also mention the Independent's always been aimed to be a powerful force for positive change. Campaigning has always been a really big part of the Independent ethos. And I would mention two things there. One is our work on the Help the Hungry campaign, which has been tremendous. It's raised many millions of pounds and really put that to incredibly good use. We've had people in food vans going out delivering food from, it's very, we're working with the Felix Project, which is a very smart charity, which works on the model that rather than necessarily having to provide all the food, there's so much food waste out there that really we've got so much food out there, we just need to move it from places where it's not needed to places where it's really needed, and you can feed a lot of people really meaningfully. So, working with the Evening Standard as our sister title on that campaign has been fantastic, raised many millions to really fund that and deliver change. The other thing I'd mention is the campaign team actually secured a really great agreement between the W20, the wildlife charities, the biggest wildlife charities in the world, which I was quite proud of because it's easy to lose sight of where this pandemic really came from, and the kind of the likely root causes of it. And certainly our relationship with wildlife does bring zoonotic risk with it. And I was glad to see a couple of weeks ago that they stayed on that, and that they managed to secure a kind of common request for the G20 to act and to take that stuff seriously. So, I think the campaigning side of it's been very powerful too.
Do you think as a whole that the UK and news industry has come out of this well so far with the public?
Yes, I think that as people have really wanted to turn to trusted sources of information, they've gone online, and I think that they have been. I think they've found what they've been looking for. I think that the innovation across our industry in the past year, at a time when business models have been being rewritten in the background and huge upheaval has been happening within the news industry itself, for the newsrooms to have really delivered the incredible journalism that has been coming from across the industry, I think that's incredibly applaudable. I think they've done a really good job. Data graphics, video documentaries, proper scoops of actually what's happening on the ground, holding government to account in a really profound and powerful way. I think there's probably also been some playing into agendas perhaps, which is the other side of certain parts of our industry, but I would always rather stay on the positive side of things and look to celebrate what we do right, rather than the odd occasion where maybe things have been a bit less positive.
I mean, one or two people have said to me, this is one of the greatest challenges for a media like the one in the United Kingdom, one of the most vibrant in the world, very, very protective of its independence, and yet has to strike that balance of holding government to account, as you've said, strongly holding government to account, but also not ruining public confidence and undermining the ability to defeat the virus. Do you think we managed to get that right, or have we as an industry been a little bit too far towing the line with government, or in some cases perhaps not towing it enough?
I think asking questions is never something the press should really be criticised for. Just to refer back to Sean again, he answered this very well indeed during the pandemic, when he said that at a time of crisis, you need more journalism, you don't need less journalism. That is the moment to really inquire and to ask. It would have been deeply irresponsible had the media set off flares unnecessarily and set off overly aggressive questioning of evidence. But I think actually the media's done a fantastic job of questioning data, presenting data, being the authoritative account of this. It's unprecedented. We haven't lived through this before, so it's very, very hard to know what data points are the most relevant points. And yet we've seen the government put up data that's then been questioned by the press, in the press, and quite rightly so, and then been corrected. I think that to hold the government to account in a time of crisis is absolutely more important than ever. And yeah, I think that on the whole, this industry has done a very, very good job. I'm very proud of what the Independent's done.
What about the other side of the coin? How do you think that the government's media operation has worked? I'm looking forward, of course, with the appointment of Allegra Stratton as Number 10's spokesperson, and at the beginning of the year, before all this started, we had concerns over changes to the lobby system. I say we as an industry, concerns about that, and if anything, it's been slightly worse than perhaps we feared. Have you got any reservations about what is going on in the way that government speaks to us?
I think that actually the spirit of independent journalism has had a huge endorsement from the public. I really do. I think that the public now are completely clear that I think sometimes it's journalists obsess constantly about the values and the morals of journalism, and quite right too. But I think this year it's become something that is absolutely present in the minds of the public, that they don't want selective briefings to favour titles. They can see full well when policies are being rolled out at the last minute to, only this title, only that title because of the way it's presented. They're wise to that. And I think that what people crave more and more is independent inquiry and robust journalistic presentation. I think that if you have a policy you're about to announce and you're scared of doing that in front of journalists because they might ask irritating questions, I think you've got to wonder about the policy, really, not blame journalists for asking questions. I think, it was very worrying back in when was it? January, February, I think it was, when we had we had a call in the office that our correspondent had turned up to number 10 for a briefing, and the division had been made by the press team there that certain titles stood on one side of the foyer, other titles were put on the other side of the foyer, and only one side were invited in. But I thought that the reaction of the lobby there to all walk out was really impressive and absolutely the right thing to do, to stand together. We are fundamentally all on the same side there. Having an open relationship with government where the press can ask questions in a meaningful way benefits everyone. I thought it was really good to see how many of the journalists who got the opportunity to ask questions in the briefings, the daily briefings, while we had them, it was good to see them kind of finish each other's questions a little bit and pick up that thread and make sure that, if the person before me in a row of questioning had answered something that I didn't feel had quite been satisfactorily answered, that I'd back them up on that. I thought that the press did a very good job there. As for the new system, well, it's very new. I don't think we've really seen it in effect for very long to judge it. I don't want to get ahead of it and judge it. That would be wrong. I think that if it means that there is more opportunity to ask questions and get meaningful answers, then that would be a good thing. If it is an attempt to shield certain people from having to give answers, then that's obviously not a very good thing. So we'll just have to see how that one goes down, really. I would say that actually, I thought that the some of the relevant thing for the industry is the amount of money that the government spent on ad campaigns through the pandemic, which I think I can see that was a really important source of revenue to keep paying journalist salaries and to keep the industry in good shape. And actually, I thought it also delivered meaningful messages. I think we've got something running at the moment, which is about health and well-being, which I know is a really big subject for our readers and something that we've been serving anyway. But it's it's been good to see that side of the government action too.
And of course, the government have for a while now spoken the right things, haven't they? I mean, we are supposedly leading the world on campaigns for free press and a free media through the Foreign Office. We've just seen the latest conference in Canada. We had ours here a year ago. Somewhat it rubs up, doesn't it, sometimes at times when we are only sort of number 34 in the World Press Freedom Index. And we do find that we have situations where, as you said, and amazing that the government would ever think, or would ever think that they could divide the lobby and they wouldn't have everyone walk out.
I've got great faith in the press, actually. I think that for the past few years, my job has been to try and tell journalists what to do. And I can tell you that's not always easy for all the right reasons. They're a stubborn bunch when they want to be, and good on them. I think that what we saw was the attempt to control things in an overly aggressive way at times and an overly controlling way at times. It's anathema to what the Independent stands for. The Independent is the Independent. We're all up for independent scrutiny of anything, whether it's government policy or any other issue. And as I say, I think that we've seen that I think that the public are very aware now of the value of the scrutiny that the press brings. It's not always been, introducing yourself as a journalist in a group of people has not always been the most popular intro. It's not always been the world's kind of favorite profession. But I think that actually people have really come to value our industry and our industry's input. And I think that when you look at the impact that online journalism has had in those live blogs, how many people have consulted live blogs to find out either basically what the rules are, or, look up online, what are the rules? Look up online which bits of the confusing barrage of statistics that we've just been presented with, which ones actually kind of are the crucial piece of information. Has the government doing a good job in test and trace as it claims we've been doing or not? Should we, there's a lot of ways that conspiracy theories can be spread, but the mainstream media has a great role to play in debunking the anti-vax conspiracy theories, for instance. And I think that in all those ways, I think that there's a real appreciation for the impact of free-thinking journalism.
And watching from this side of the Atlantic, and of course we all pay attention to what goes on the other side of the Atlantic, and in this last year particularly, and therefore perhaps paid a little bit more attention to the American media and the way that they cover things. I get the impression, please disagree with me if you wish, that the American media is not as liked and trusted as ours is, and it is more partisan in many ways. Do you think, if that's true, that has helped you and other UK media that have broken into the American market, because we do balance things an awful lot more, and as you say, you're independent and provide factful information?
Yes, I think there is an element of truth in what you say. I think that the values of what was Fleet Street and is now British media are world famous. The way we do things is respected for a reason. That we put evidence at the core of our reporting, and that we invite a range of opinions based on evidence in our comment pages, are really important principles that aren't always in tip-top condition around the world necessarily. I think that America's relationship with its press has been no doubt heavily influenced in some quarters by the behavior of its president in recent years. I say that as someone who had to receive a phone call to tell them that their chief US correspondent had been arrested at a Black Lives Matter protest not so long ago. Andrew Buncombe was there, close to a police line, not on the wrong side of a police line, showing his media accreditation, doing his job. As he said in the piece he wrote, his job was not to back away, his job was to be present, and his job was to record events. And the fact that he was arrested, assaulted, held in chains for doing the job of a journalist in Seattle, which doesn't have, has a reputation as quite a liberal centre, was shocking, absolutely shocking. That was a long night trying to get him out of the jail. So I think that America's relationship with journalism is polarized. I think that it is massively valued and massively appreciated in certain quarters, and that the media has been rewarded by the people in their giving of contributions and subscriptions and loyal engagement. We've benefited from all those things, and I think it will come through this. I think it really will. And I think that actually in a way you could, I don't want to reduce it because it's a incredibly complex issue and a very robust issue. But Trump fought the press, and maybe the press won.
Absolutely. So we talked about the pandemic, we talked about the American elections. Anyone have thought, and of course the Brexit negotiations are chugging along behind us, and that anyone think there were only 3 subject matters in the world in 2020? Have there been any other highlights of news stories that you think in any normal year we'd have looked back and gone, crikey, those were the ones that rocked the foundations?
Well, we were planning this time last year, we were planning a big year of 2020 being about climate, and we were planning it about being all about Brexit as well. you don't get a second chance with Brexit. Brexit is, it's incredible. The Brexit story, what an incredible story. And the governor of the Bank of England coming up only last week saying that the long-term impact of a potential no deal, if there is no deal, the long-term impact of that would be bigger than COVID, is a great reminder that there is that other story running this year and that it deserves attention. We're certainly going to be reporting on that right up to the very end and beyond. And climate, has it been a lost year for publicising the cause of climate? I don't think so. I think that actually it's encouraged lots of people to realise that there are other ways to live, that there are threats to our way of life, and that if we don't take those threats seriously, we will regret it. I think that a lot of people will, of course, want to rush back to normality, but I think an equal number of people have realised that maybe things should be different. We are, The Independent has got such an amazing heritage of environmental reporting. We're not about to shy away from that subject anytime soon. So we can ramp up I think that as public attention, hopefully, let's hope that the vaccines come along, let's hope that COVID goes away, let's hope that come Easter, we're, in a sense of normality. And I absolutely think that the next big subject to talk about is going to be climate.
Well, thank you very much, Christian. We're sadly drawing to a close for our session here. Before we go, it's been the tradition of these interviews that at the end I ask a question of my guests, which has got nothing really to do with, needn't be anything to do with the media particularly. But as you were just saying, some people want to rush back to normality, or whatever normality was. When this is all over, on a personal level, what is it that you're looking forward to doing again that you haven't been able to do during this mad year?
Okay, on a personal level, I'm going to answer slightly, I'm going to be a bit Boy Scout about it and talk about work a little bit, just because traveling to see, we have expanded a lot internationally during this last year. And while we all want to keep down our the miles we cover, it is really important to go and see people, and it is really important to make sure they feel connected to the core. And I'm very aware that we're expanding, as I said, in India, on the west coast of the US. We're expanding our, our Spanish language teams within the US, and it's very easy for those teams to feel a little bit neglected from the centre. So we'll be going there to make them feel a bit more connected to us, I hope, and it'd be lovely to see them as well. It was lovely to go to the US for the previous election. It was an amazing experience journalistically, so missed out on travelling personally for that one, although we did manage to get some reporters there, which was great, in addition to our US team. But no, definitely flights to, or some trips to see our teams around the world would be good. On a personal level, on a personal level, something that I love doing, I help to run a sailing club up in Suffolk, which sounds very grand, but isn't really. And that's been struggling to survive lockdown in its own special way, and been doing a really good job of it as well, actually. So as soon as lockdown restrictions finish, I will be out with my kids. I don't care how cold the water is. I'm going to be out with my kids on the North Sea, having some fun, I hope.
Sounds fantastic. Sounds absolutely fantastic.
My phone is either too endangered by salt water or out of attention to ring constantly. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Well, thank you once again for spending so much time with us, Christian, and for letting us know your thoughts. I take many things away from our chat here, one of which will be always to imagine you now in a unicorn outfit. The whole of the team at the Indy as a massive herd of unicorns. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us for so much of this conference. Thank you for giving us your support. Please, as I say, if you'd like to see this again, then you can by visiting our website, societyofeditors.org, where it's there, and you can follow us on #EditorsUK. That does bring us to the end of our virtual conference 2020. May I thank all of you. May I thank Christian, may I thank all of those who've taken part in our panel debates, and of course the fantastic team at the Society of Editors who have, of course, done all the work, and I've just stepped up in front of the camera every now and again. Thank you very much, and hopefully next year we'll get to see each other all in person. Thank you.
Thank you.